Hi guys, welcome back to another mini vid. This one is on Native Americans development of culture areas. Before we get started on this mini vid, I just wanted to say thank you to those of you that have been doing these. Hopefully you've been getting some information out of them. The note sheets that are coming back have been outstanding. A lot of detail, which is great, and some of you are doing a really nice job trying to get into some of the quotes that are being given and giving some thoughts relative to the information. You're doing a wonderful job with those. If you haven't been doing a good job with these, try to pick up the pace a little bit. A lot of this information and detail will be on your test. And we try to make questions or connections during class on these topics. So the more you interact with this part and stop and go back, rewind, ask questions, bring those types of things into class, and we should be good to go. So let's get back to this mini vid here. Module 1 on Native Americans. This lesson or mini vid, it has to do with the development of culture areas. And your objective for this lesson when you're all done is you need to be able to identify different culture areas in North America and discuss how they adapted to their environment to meet their basic needs. And so this one's going to be a really short mini vid. You have a short set of notes. And here's where we start. We start with the idea that the first human beings, the indigenous people that came to North America, came from Asia up here in the upper left hand corner and crossed over this Beringia or this land bridge. This is again the most popular theory during the last ice age. This is when all the glaciers that are up here were covering the North American continent. And as these people migrated down and were nomadic, they kind of went all the way down into South America. They went over here into the eastern part of North America, over here along the west coast, and they began to settle. This is about 10,000 years ago that this happens, and they're migrating into North and South America. The second theory, that less popular, less evidence, is that they followed out here in the ocean along the coast and that they kind of settled in different spots along the continents. The key to all of this, and the next step in the stage of development, is that 5,000 years ago, roughly, farming was discovered and started being implemented among some of these Native American groups. This is where domestication begins, and a stable food source is now available to all of these people. And this is where culture again begins to start to develop. And so domestication for this purpose in this discussion means culture areas. And so as we talk about these culture areas, most of them are going to be domesticated, where they stay in one place, they're farming, and the key again, the objective, is they're adapting to the environment to meet their basic needs. Now if we take a look at your note sheet, you'll see on there's a couple of things that we want to fill in as we go. And the first part of this says that as groups learned to farm and became domesticated, the way their basic needs of food and shelter were met was influenced by their surroundings. This means it's influenced by the environment. So you want to fill in on your blank there the word environment. The environment is going to influence what these groups do and how they meet their basic needs. Just like living here in Western New York, the environment influences what we do to meet our basic needs. Like when it snows out, we put on a heavy coat and we turn up the heat. If you lived in Florida, you would obviously not wear a jacket probably unless it was a really cold night. More likely you would wear t-shirts, shorts, and turn on the air conditioning. And so the environment is going to dictate for you, especially for these domesticating cultures as they just start to develop, how they live their life. Whether it's food or whether it's shelter, they're going to adapt to meet the environment that they're surrounded by. And so some definitions that we need to make sure we know. This first definition is a culture is a person's complete way of life, their culture, the way they talk, the clothes they wear, the behavior, the morals, the attitudes that they have, and the type of food that they eat are all factors that make up a person's culture. Now, as you get a bunch of people together and a bunch of groups together that share culture, which is our second definition here, you now become what is called a culture area. And these are the groups that we were talking about in our vocabulary cards. These are the terms that are listed over here on the sideboard, and they're listed below in the chart. All these culture areas are groups of people within a geographic area that have similar characteristics. Now, something that we will eventually get to, but I want to share the definition with you right now, is that once these groups start to develop their own cultures, they're going to start interacting with each other and sharing. And this term is called cultural diffusion. And so just to give you a little heads up, cultural diffusion is something that's going to happen between two different cultures where they start to share products. Now, your job is going to be to fill in the chart below, and so I'll quickly just go through it. You can pause the video if you need to stop and fill some of this stuff in. But here are some of the culture areas that we gave you on your flashcards with a little bit more detail, if you will. Our first culture area is going to be the Northwest Coast. The geography of this region is along the Atlantic coast, or excuse me, the Pacific coast, and there's dense forest around where they were settling. And so you have a couple of factors, environmental, that you have to deal with here. Is with such dense forest, it's probably going to be hard to farm. It's up in the northwest, in the northern part of North America, and so your growing seasons are going to be short. And so adaptation to this environment means a couple of things for them in terms of food and shelter. Number one, their primary source of food is going to be fish. They're going to fish out of the ocean. They're going to eat shellfish. They might eat sea lion. There's some rivers that kind of come inland off of the North Pacific coast, and they can fish in those areas as well. So fish is going to be their primary diet. In terms of shelter and housing, they have permanent dwellings made of wood, very much like a longhouse, but not a longhouse. And they use the timber to make those. So a very domesticated group stays in one place that adapts to their environment. Now, the next group that's on this list is also a domestic group from the eastern woodlands. The eastern woodlands are found over here. We usually refer to them as the Iroquois, but there's other groups and tribes that are included in that as well. The geography for this region, 4 seasons, there's an abundance of wildlife, there's trees, rivers, and fertile ground. So in terms of food, this culture area has a number of ways that they can get the things that they need for survival. They can fish in streams and in lakes, they can farm, they gather, and they can hunt, usually deer, turkey, smaller game typically in the eastern woodlands. In terms of shelter, they're known for longhouses for the Iroquois, wigwams for the Algonquins, and then the adaptation here is the use of timber to make their permanent homes. And so they're adapting to the environment to meet their basic needs. Now, the next group is one group that is nomadic, but still a culture area at the same time. The Great Plains, they are the exception to the rule. So if you want, you can double star the Great Plains. This group lives in an area in the central part of North America where there's flat land, limited water, and then some wild game such as the buffalo. And so for food, what they do is they're going to be primarily hunters. They're going to follow the buffalo around, they're going to kill what they need, and then use the buffalo hide for their shelter with their limited lumber to make teepees. Teepees are mobile housing, so this is the adaptation. They have mobile housing so that they can follow their food. So when the buffalo herd migrates, the Native American groups or culture area can go with them. Again, the buffalo is used for everything for their culture. It is their food, it is their shelter, whether that is a teepee or, buffalo robes, and it's used for their tools as well. They use the bones for their tools. And so culture areas, again, adapting to their environment to meet their basic needs for survival. And then the last one here is the Southwest culture area, domesticated. They live in an area with little rain, it's hot, and so what they're going to do is they are going to adapt. They're going to build dams and canals so that they can irrigate and farm, and then they're going to build their housing out of pueblos or sun-dried bricks that are built into the sides of the mountain. And so again, very quickly, the main objective here for culture areas is that you will be able to tell me different culture areas, identify them. So we have a couple different ones. We have the Northwest, we have the Eastern Woodlands, we have the Southwest, and then we have the Plains. And so from each of these groups, you should be able to tell me what they did for food, what they did for shelter, and then how they adapted. So when you come into class, make sure you're ready to discuss this. I apologize, we got to 10 minutes anyway. Again, keep up the good work. If you have any questions, write them down, bring them to class, and hopefully we can get all that stuff squared away for you. Thanks a lot, guys. Have a great night, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.